Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Gwendolyn from SFA Secretariat team, and today we will explore the impact of OpenAI on the fintech industry. Today we are glad to have Tiger Analytics to share more about the cutting-edge advancement and showcase real-world applications, navigating the challenges and opportunities that OpenAI presents. Before I pass it on, just a gentle reminder to keep your mics on mute at all times. And if you have any questions along the way, do feel free to leave them in the Q&A function in the chat above your screen. And we'll try our best to address them after the sharing session. So without ado, I will pass it on to Shu Hoon from Tiger Analytics.
Okay, actually, I'm from Microsoft, so
Oh,
it's all right. Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Shuhun. Nice to meet you all. I'm the startup account director for ISV as well as staff for ASEAN region. Thank you and welcome to this webinar. Together with SFA, Tiger Analytics as well as TISG. So just want to give a quick keynote, about this event itself. In our conversations nowadays, right, with customer and partners, it's actually become very evident that the demand of Azure AI and Copilot is very significant. With the CEO as well as the CTO actually calling Gen AI is a game changer. So I would say that basically it has actually changed, how we do business. You cannot spell digital transformation without AI. And in this new world, technologies such as GPT-4 enable the employees as well as customers to have better, higher quality interactions, as well as to be able to find information more quickly and to be able to create solutions faster. So you need to be on this AI frontier now, because if you're not, your competitors are. So I'm very happy, we organized this event together to basically tackle your questions, tackle your issue, as well as I hope you enjoy this session. And Tiger Analytics, our close partners in driving the possibilities of AI, will basically, tell you more what you need. And after these sessions, we would like to hear more from you, what support needed from your side, especially in Gen AI. So without further ado, I also would like to introduce Rahul Mehta, who is the technical pre-sales on data and AI from Tiger Analytics, to kick it off. So Rahul, go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, SFA, Microsoft, and DISG for getting this together. I really appreciate it. And I would like to also welcome all the participants for taking the time out on a Monday afternoon to get together. And I hope the next an hour or so, you definitely have something to take back from this session, right? Maybe about the use cases, or maybe about how do we start our journey, or how do we keep the first step into the journey of AI, right? So this session will first talk about Tiger Analytics, who we are, what do we do, and then we kind of narrow down into the funnel of learning about AI, learning about open AI, and about the use cases, how we kind of have solved it for the customers in the fintech finance uh, industry. And towards the end, we'll kind of discuss how you can take the first step, right? Be it on the business perspective, be it on the technical perspective, right? How you can tackle and start your journey towards the art of possible using or harnessing the power of AI. So before we get started, a quick introduction of me. My name is Rahul. I am almost like 13 years of experience into the field of data, right? I started my career working on databases, hyperscalers, and I've been in the journey wherein I have seen customers who were very reluctant to kind of move to the cloud, and I've seen that transformation wherein we kind of have got the crucial, the PII and the sensitive data from on-premise to the cloud, and now we are expanding on the cloud. And also, I kind of have been in an era wherein we kind of have set up an hybrid environments as well. Most lately, with this 2020, the Gen AI boom. I kind of have the opportunity to kind of work with customers of different domains and kind of build best of breed solutions for them, right? And it's not like a single track of solution, but rather how do we get off best of everything, kind of architect it together and deliver value at a lower cost. So that's about me. And about the company that I represent, Tiger Analytics, is what we'll be looking into. So Tiger Analytics, we are a pure play data, AI, and ML engineering services company, right? That's what we do. That's what our DNA is, right? We just focus on the data, right? Once you have the data, we kind of think that data is the new oil, right? I'm sure you must have heard that already, right? What you can do with your data is totally endless, and you cannot compare it with any other. It's very powerful. Be it doing data engineering, doing data science, doing advanced analytics, or even opportunities to productionize or monetize out of your data. So we are an end-to-end data and analytics transformation partner. We try to bring the value out of your data, no matter whatever format, whatever is the residency. We try to bring it, do the engineering, and take it to the entire journey of deriving value of your data from whatever that source is. In this part of the world, that is in APAC, we are kind of regionally headquartered in Singapore, but we kind of have our presence in Malaysia, Philippines, Australia, India, and across the globe. We are headquartered in United States, but also have a presence in UK, Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. On the right top, you will see certain of the logos that we have worked and delivered values with, but we are a team of more than now 5,000 plus data engineers, data scientists, wherein majority of them kind of have advanced degree or PhDs into data science and machine learning. Um, we kind of have repeat revenue from our existing business. That is where the thing that I was talking about, the journey is once we start small, once we eventually scale, it's the entire journey that from your data being just residing at the data source to how do we derive value from it, right? And like I said, 75% of our employees have advanced degree. We have a very less iteration rate. We kind of have a very engaged team, and I'll just show you the capabilities of AI that we have within Tiger Analytics. We kind of have delivered 1,000 plus projects on advanced AI and analytics. And below are the few recognitions from Forrester, Everest Group that have been awarded to us, right? Without further ado, a quick time or quick few sneak peek into our partnership with Microsoft, right? We are the preferred partners for Microsoft in this region, and few of the accreditations that you see on the screen the representation of the value that we drive along with Microsoft to the customer domain, right? On the left, you see we are advanced specialized in AI analytics and machine learning, also in Azure infrastructure and app innovation. This year has been a great year for us with Microsoft. We kind of had striked and hat trick with 3 awards, Partner of the Year awards from Microsoft in the region of Singapore, in the region of Malaysia and Philippines. When it comes to Fabric, the newer technology, the talk of the town that has been on the data engineering domain, we have been the featured partner, and also we have been recently awarded with the real-time intelligence feature partner for Microsoft Fabric. And these are the few of the big logos that you see of how we have driven values with Microsoft technology, and have drive them to the entire data journey, right? Few metrics below, wherein we talk about that of the all resources that we have close to 1,300 plus resources that are only and only living and breathing on Azure tech stack, right? Be it Power Platform, be it Power BI, or be it the Azure Cloud itself, right? We kind of have many engagements going on the Microsoft track, but at the same time, we are also certified, right? Around 970 plus certifications are present on the Microsoft technology stack. And here, the few logos, like I mentioned, are the ones that we kind of have created high impact, more value. In the technology chain in the space of data, AI, and analytics, right? Now, as we go down the funnel, right, we did talk about Tiger Analytics. Now we get narrower into the funnel and talk specifically about our Gen AI expertise, right? We kind of have expertise in data engineering and advanced analytics as well. But for the sake of this session, I'd like to speak about the generative AI expertise that we have, right? So there's an internal practice of 150 plus data scientists and data engineers, like you call it the geek heads or whatever you want to call it, who kind of work, they code, and kind of build AI platforms internally as accelerators, and even kind of deploy it for the customers, right? And looking at the areas of capability that we have, it kind of broadly categorized into the things that you see, right? One is the text and NLP, which is wherein we do the query to insight generation, we do search, query, and summarization. We also do autonomous agents and the basic Q&A answering. Um, Talking about audio video multimodal, there are conversational avatar, which has been most requested by customers in the recent time, wherein they kind of want to have a conversational agent with an avatar that can speak and talk and interact with the users. Right? There's Q&A, there's a visual question and answering, there's synthetic image generation, and automated speak recognition. So all these things that you see on the screen will definitely deep dive into it as we move forward. But I just wanted to highlight about the various categories in which AI use cases can be grouped together, right? One can be basic text, that is, you do query and summarization, and one can be about taking it to an advanced level. You call it as the autonomous agents, wherein multiple agents kind of work together to get better responses for you. Specifically about the AI presence, here are the few recognitions that we have, that we kind of had the AIMS top Gen AI service provider for 2023, and we have been also awarded by Cypher in 2023 for the work that we did in AI. Another key element that I want to mention here is we kind of have a dedicated Gen AI R&D lab. So those kind of folks are the one that actually works behind the scene to kind of get certain amount of data, right? Be it comparison of two models, right? Be it comparison of GPT 3.5 or 4, like how does both model kind of perform? And we kind of have metrics associated with that for a given data set. So these are the teams that kind of work, do the background work, do some homework, and also build accelerators that we could leverage to our customers to get down or shorten the development time that it kinds of need to build AI solutions end to end. Now we move forward. That, like I said, grouping to our core capabilities, we kind of have invest time and value in creating accelerators that kind of brings down the implementation time, something that we could show you. You could see quicker value rather than waiting 6 months, 8 months to kind of generalize or gain the value out of it. We have a dedicated Gen AI research team that will kind of do the research if needed based on a specific use case and get out some metrics or numbers that you could leverage and have it at your disposal. And how do we operationalize and scale the entire LLM ops, right? It's not that you just get all the services together and hey, voila, this is the product, right? How do we operationalize this? How do we scale this? If it has to scale from 100 users to 1000 users, 1000 users to 10,000 users, how do we prepare an infrastructure that supports the AI end-to-end configuration so that it does not time out or there's no token limit or something that kind of errors out when you are out there in the production, right? So talking about LLMs, right? Talking about capabilities. Now, I want you to kind of have this slide or have this three layers very much fitted in your brains, wherein the very bottom is the foundational capabilities that you could have seen generally over the internet right now, right? With Copilot for Bing, wherein it's just is able to contain generation. It is able to do, just basic Q&A on the data that is available on the internet. So those are the kind of foundational capabilities. And you will see that this is the kind of category that you will see it across all the use cases that you see. Either you are doing summarization, either you are doing Q&A, or you are doing text generation, wherein you just provide a sentence and ask the LLM to kind of build the entire paragraph or the entire document for you. Out of this foundational capabilities, as we kind of move further, there are advanced capabilities that LLMs can also do. That is the next generation chatbots, answering Q&A, getting it connected to a live agent, taking the response and kind of creating a ticket in the ticketing system. How do we do query to insights, right? It is more of an layer wherein you just give an input on a natural language and it kind of gets the data on a SQL database, which is a structured database. So SQL doesn't understand natural language. So who actually does the conversion of converting the natural language into queries that could query the SQL database and get the responses for you is what actually query to insight is. Information summarization and information search is the kind of advanced capabilities that LLMs kind of have been categorized into, right? And you could also imagine this as based on value and complexity, right? So if you think of the x-axis, that could be the complexity, and the y-axis could be the value that it kind of provides. And the talk of the town that has been in 2024 are the agents, right? Are the autonomous agents or the agentic framework that everyone is talking, right? Which is not like one narrow Q&A that you do to the LLM model, but how about a series of Q&A to an LLM models that the output of one LLM model goes as an input to the other LLM model? Or how about creating an agentic framework wherein you kind of create different personas for agents to interact with each other before it kind of gives you the response. So to summarize the slides, it's about foundational capabilities wherein do we do the basic thing to get and derive Q&A, query content, summarization from your data, and we go towards high value, high complexity use cases, which involves the use of autonomous agents, wherein it is designed to do complex tasks all by itself. Let me give you an example of autonomous agents because this has been like the key thing for 2024. For example, let's say I want to make a travel to, let's say, Singapore for that matter, right? I'm on a vacation. I want to take a travel trip to Singapore, but I also want to carry the sunscreen, but I don't want to carry like three, four boxes for me and my family for the sunscreen, right? So I ask a question, how much ounces of sunscreen do I need for my trip to Singapore, right? Now, this is a very complex question if you think through it technically, right? Because the LLM model has to understand the current weather of Singapore. It has to understand the itinerary that I'll be going through in Singapore, how many times I'll be out there in the sun rather than being in an air conditioner or in the malls. And based on that, based on my exposure time, it should be able to calculate how much ounces of sunscreen would I need to my trip to Singapore. So that's what autonomous agent is. Like one agent will kind of go through my itinerary. One agent will kind of go through the weather that has been or that is being predicted on the days when I'm out there. And one will kind of see if the amount of exposure that I'll be having onto the sun. And based on that, it should come up with an answer that per person, I would need this much ounces of sunscreen. So that is a quick example of autonomous agents. That I wanted to give. So solving complex questions is what autonomous agents is all about, right? Wherein you just answer the question, then the entire process is automated to kind of give you the answers, right? So foundational capabilities, and we go towards autonomous agents, which is like an entire end-to-end automated process, right? So I want you to kind of keep this image in your heads as we move through the slides, because you will see that everything kinds of boils down to this categories only. And this is not something that we built by ourselves. This is something that the experience that we have working with customers. All of this will kind of boil down to the capability that you see on the screen, right? Whether you want to solve complex problem with autonomous agents or it is something that can be solved by simple RAG approach, right? So moving on about the use cases, right? So we will absolutely deep dive into multiple use cases that is for the larger benefit of for this audience. But I just wanted to have some value to the previous slide that I had, wherein I was trying to tell you that everything kind of boils down to the certain category or the certain classifications when it comes to OpenAI use cases, right? That either you are summarizing, either you are categorizing, either you are generating new content using LLM models, either you are doing language translations, right? For example, you get reviews. The reviews are written in, let's say, Malay or in Tag English, or how do you kind of convert it to a straightforward language that can be saved in your information systems, right? So either you generate code, either you do sentiment analysis, either you do conversational agents or the chatbots that are there. Now, I kind of have purposely kept other industries for you to view so that you see that eventually it is all boiling down to the same categories, but at the end, the use case kind of is specific to a particular domain, right? Wherein in banking and finance or in fintech, you want to do text summarization of various financial reports or regulatory reports. How do we do that, right? One such case we are working with a customer right now is there is a mother document that is there, and there are various sister documents that are there. So the sister documents kind of get updated very frequently, and the mother document is nothing but a representation of all the sister documents that are there. So the use cases, we kind of have to build a solution wherein as and when a particular section of a sister document is updated, the same kind of updates the mother document, and that mother document will be the final uh, reference point for all the agencies or the bodies that are referencing that mother document. So this is a kind of search summarization, content comparison, and kind of then updating the mother document with the summarized data that is there. So like I said, summarizing on this slide, all will boil down to the categories that we see here, and we'll deep dive into fintech use cases as we kind of move further, which is summarization, categorization, translation, chatbots, sentiment analysis using NLP, and then the conversational agents that are there. Now, hitting straight to the bullseye, the main purpose for which we are here is about exploring the art of possible in the fintech, in the finance domain, right? And the case studies that we are showing is something that we already have done and deployed for the customers, and the customers have seen value through it. And all of this have been built on the Azure ecosystem, right? So before we kind of start hitting on the use cases, I'll be bombarding terms such as LLM, such as OpenAI, AI. Many a times in my past conversation with customers, I have seen a kind of confusion that kind of happens because AI and generative AI is not the same. AI and OpenAI is not the same, right? So for the sake and benefit of all the audience, a quick refresher, right? So when you talk about AI is not something that has caught the boom very recently, right? AI has been there um, into this since 1956, right? Around that period. I may not be right with the exact year, but around this period, AI has been there. And it is a field of computer science that actually mimics how a human would, interact, or how human intelligence can be replicated into the machine. And a greater subset of that AI is machine learning, right? Is it like recognizing of patterns is what machine learning is, right? So example, if you have five squares and then there is a circle, and then there are five squares and then there is a circle, we could use machine learning to predict what can be the next, and obviously it could be the five square, but that is the possible, or that is the one that is maximum possible to be created in recognizing the patterns. That is what machine learning is all about. So when I say AI is what the broader term is, and the subset of that is machine learning, which is nothing but recognizing patterns and trends and do predictions out of it, right? And there are algorithms within machine learning that kind of do this. And another subset of that is deep learning. Deep learning is nothing but imagine how our brain works, right? There are a lot of neural networks or neutrons that kind of transmit messages between the different layers of brain. That is what deep learning is all about, is about using neural networks algorithms to kind of process the data and make decisions, right? Few examples of deep learning can be self-driving cars, for that matter, right? It kind of needs a lot of data, and it should be able to decide based on little bit of cognitive skills that is there while creating that self-driving car, right? Like the distance to the other car, the human that is there on the right side, the human that is there on the left side. So that is all deep learning. Now the boom that you see right now is with generative AI. Generative AI is nothing but a subset of a deep learning transformer model, which is called as Gen AI, which is like generating new content with itself. And within Gen AI, there are foundation models, and one of that foundation model is an LLM, which is works on the text, right? So if you kind of input the text, it will give you output of the text. Not only it will kind of predict the next sentence, next paragraph, it can also predict, or it can also generate the next entire document for you. This is what generative AI is. So within generative AI, there's foundation models out of which one is LLM, which kind of works on a large language models, but it is not restricted to large language models. There are audio models, there are video models, and there are models that you could have seen in the market, right? DALL-E is one such example, which kind of takes text as an input and give images as the output, right? So, like I said, when I talk about AI or when I throw the word AI is a broader term which kind of have machine learning algorithms into it. And when I talk LLMs, it is about Gen AI, which is the very subset of the entire AI category. And Open AI is just an organization that have kind of provided us those pre-trained generative transformer models, which are GPT 3.5, GPT-4, for Omni, and so on and so forth, right? Which are available on Azure platform for you to leverage and build that architecture. But at the same time, Azure is not only and only restricted to OpenAI. You have models from Meta, you have models from Hugging Face, and there are quite a few that you could use to leverage and build solutions on the Azure platform. So quickly summarizing on this, AI is not same as generative AI. Generative AI is mostly about capturing about LLM models, audios, videos, deepfakes that you would have seen recently. That is what generative AI is about. It's about generating the textual content. But AI in broader sense is about how we could leverage the technology of computer science to replicate human intelligence that is there. Moving on the case studies. Now, the entire time we're going to spend on case studies, and at the end, we're going to see how do we kind of start, if anything, in the case studies kind of resonates with you, right? The whole idea is not to see, hey, this case study is something that I cannot use it. This is not applicable. No, it's not like that. But it's a sense to kind of give you an idea that you could expand and scale uh, up to, right? So, just relax and just have a look at all the case studies and think how you can implement or get an idea of the case studies that we will be looking now into the next 30 minutes, as to how you could leverage and create value in your organization with that, right? So starting with an interesting case study that we have for an Asian payment services firm. This is a very big major conglomerate based out of Philippines, and we kind of have built them uh, chatbots in kind of two categories, right? One is the chatbot, which is more of an investment advisory or an educational chatbot, and another is an agent co-pilot, which we call it as a chatbot, which is used to assist contact center agents to kind of reduce their time to kind of get a particular information and give it back to the user that is there. So the problem was that there are plenty of customers, client interaction that kind of happens, and the contact center agents usually would take a lot of time to kind of search to their database, look for certain queries. For example, take an example of refunds, right? Now, if there is a transaction that I've made and and I just need a refund on that particular transaction, I reach out to the contact center agent, and contact center agent would kind of have to look and query on the certain database to kind of see what is the current status of my um, refund, right? So how we can use LLM models to kind of get the data right from the database, right? When you say database, think of it as structured data. How can I have that agent, or how can I use an LLM model to get the data from a structured database, from an unstructured data, and get it response to the contact center agent, so that we kind of reduce that resolution time that right? So this was a problem statement that we needed two things. One is for the education for the greater good of how you can give financial advisory and recommendations, and also how you can work on the agent co-pilot for the contact center agents. So the key challenges here were about guardrails, right? I think guardrails is a must and a key focus area for any AI implementation, right? If you come to this vendor, you do not want the user to ask competitive questions on the other vendors, right? So if a company is offering this, how is it better than the offering of the other competitors, right? So how do we have those bots kind of respond to a particular knowledge base, right? And how concise can be the response is what the mindset is when we kind of build this particular chatbot, right? And what is the sentiment of the customer that is coming to a contact center agent? How do we get the sentiment and accordingly act rather than giving a generic approach out of it? So based on this, we kind of built two solutions wherein we kind of had this two investment advisory, and one was the copilot agent that we built. And on the left bottom, you will see the input data that was there, right? We had historical transactions, we have standard operating procedures, SOPs that a contact center agent should follow. And we also had the best practices, the regulatory and compliance document, and all this was structured and unstructured data that was present. How we kind of process that data, how do we do feature engineering on those data, how do we extract data which is in the form of images like OCR, how do we extract that data and make that data available for the model to kind of get the meaningful data out of it, right? So we kind of deployed two models. One would just do the sentiment model, which is for the agent to understand how is the customer feedback, how is the user experience going on so far. And the second was the intent recognition model, which was just to recognize the intent of the user query and accordingly provide information to that. The entire architecture was built on Azure, and we kind of leverage prompt flow to build the entire architecture using Azure AI Studio. So we kind of get the question, we understand and determine the exact intent of the user query. And based on that, we kind of get the relevant and the matching information to be shared back to the users. Now the output of this is obviously you kind of have this interactions that are available, but I like to move to the next one wherein I could actually show you the architecture as well as the UI that we build for the customer. So this is the functional architecture wherein a user query goes through a server. uh, it actually goes to the Azure AI search, wherein we have all the data that is being chunked and embedded into a particular index into AI search. And how do we use LLMs before we kind of give response to the user interface? So the technical architecture is something that looks like this. So if you kind of double click on this functional architecture, this is what the technical architecture is, what we built, right? Now you would see that unlike RAG architecture, it's not a straightforward wherein you do a question, you get a response, but also how do we do load balancing, right? Today there are only 20 concurrent users, and let's say near the weekend or near a particular occasion there are 2000 users. How do we prevent from not getting them timeouts or token limits internally? How do we take care of this errors is by using load balancers, right? By deploying prompt flow endpoint on a scalable architecture, be it on Kubernetes service or compute that is scalable on demand in the backend, right? And like for this, we kind of have used Azure prompt flow to kind of do the Q&A, and we also do sentiment analysis using LLM models. So if I kind of have to summarize this, it is a certain set of data that we have a contact center needs to refer to and kind of get back to the customer with the problem. There are certain LLM models. We have not used just one. There are multiple kind of LLM models that have been used. We kind of the contact center agent can do a query with them with just natural language, get the responses, and get back to the user query with the particular um, response. Now, before I kind of go into this, I actually wanted to show you how this would look like, right? I'll kind of zoom in into this, but this is how the contact center agent interface is, right? You see it kind of had the requester who is the agent, but also on the right, you could see the sentiment that was being determined by the LLM models based on the interaction that is happening with the customer. Right? You could reply directly to the customer from here, but at the same time, the LLM will do the sentiment analysis, right? If the customer is irate, you might probably need to have a different strategy to handle that particular customer. Now, please do not limit yourself to think that, hey, this is only text, but you could also do this as a back office work wherein you could take call recordings of the interaction that have been done, have those recordings fed to an LLM model, and from using that speech model, speech to text conversion, you could also determine the sentiment of the conversions that have happened with the contact center agents. So in that sense, you would be able to kind of understand the sentiments of all the customers. How is your contact center doing? How is your support doing? And what is the general sentiment of the customers for your product or services that is there? And this is the financial education app that was built for this fintech company, wherein, basic general knowledge questions. If a customer wants to understand, and and this cut down the support by a certain extent, wherein you could ask on this area itself that what are the limitations of investing in this what is the refund time if a payment fails, how what if a particular interest rate is this much, if I do an investment of this much, how much would I get at particular amount of time. So simple to complex calculation, everything can be done in the natural language, and you could create a login page for you to come and log in and authenticate, and you could have this as a loyalty program for the loyal customers, and you could give this app as their disposal wherein they could ask the question about their services or the products. And for this customer, like I said, for the refund use case, right, how we kind of had done is that we find out that most of the use cases were mostly on the refund time, because the refund usually would take around 24 hours to kind of process it, and then it would kind of reflect in the bank account. So what we were able to do is we were able to kind of incorporate that refund thing into the chatbot itself. So whenever a customer logs the ticket, and if he kind of selects the refund, just by entering the transaction ID, we could tell them, hey, the refund will be done in 8 hours from now, or the current status of the refund is processing, or your refund has been already processed. Please check in your bank statement. So we were able to cut down that refund category of query for the customer to a great extent, and we saw a great reduction in the customer support tickets only for the category of refund. And like I said, this does not have to be like to like for your use case, but what you should take is the idea of what is the art of possible that can be done. And the outcome that you see is that it was a scalable solution with a very less average latency, because obviously after writing a question, no one likes to wait for a minute to get responses, right? And we were able to kind of compare this with multiple models. It's not that you kind of do it with GPT 3.5 and that's it, right? You kind of compare the responses with GPT 3.5, with GPT 4 and other LLM models, and see which is the best suited for you. And on that, we kind of bring up with this result evaluation metrics, wherein we kind of, for a particular question, right, the question is about comparison. How is the product A versus how is the product B, or how was the previous version of product A versus the product launch in 2024. So for various models, we kind of determine certain metrics on what was the correctness, what was the speech competency, what was the consciousness that was there, how did he affect, what was the ethics and behavior, and how much was it grounded to the knowledge base. And we kind of give the final score out of 5 for all the metrics that you see, right? Be it comparison, be it compute is like doing calculations, right? If I get an interest of this for an investment, what is the corpus that I see after 5 years down the line, right? So how will an LLM model respond to that, right? How did it kind of respond to factual questions? How did it respond to investment advice? Is all the metrics that you could see, and based on this, you could make a choice to an LLM model that you want to do, and then kind of go ahead with the deployment. So this is one of the case study that I wanted to deep dive. Now, since looking at the time, I will kind of cover the breadth of the case study rather than the depth. That will kind of give you the sense of what is the art of possible in this world of AI, right? And obviously, we could leverage open AI models, which kind of reduces the transformation time or the journey it kind of takes from your data to kind of generating the value, right? Now, here are various case studies kind of grouped together, wherein I have kind of shown the key value that has been derived out of this, right? At any point, this all thing will be shared with you. You do not have to worry or panic as to if I turn the slides, we'll miss out the information. This will be shared with you. I just want you to sit back and relax and kind of understand how did we solve the problem for them, and how you could think that the same thing or something variant of it can be useful in solving the problem for you, right? Be it mundane task, or be it a sense of automation wherein something takes, for example, 3 days now, how you could do that in 30 minutes using LLMs or a combination of LLMs, right? So talking about the first category that I kind of have categorized various case studies that we have solved is in in risk analytics, right? For example, take the second last one, right? How do we kind of estimate the credit loss and determine the loss forecasting that could happen? And we did this for a US based financial service company, right? So there are datas about the resource, about his income, right, about his expenditure, about his spending, and how do we build the probability of default, the PD. How do we build LGD, that is the loss generated on default, and how do we determine the exposure at default, right? And how do we build a framework around this data points, fed that into machine learning, and kind of determine and do that loss forecasting and stress testing for a particular use case, right? So various data points from the financial, be it the balance that is there, the income that is there, the transactions that is there, and how do we determine or how do we forecast that what will be the probable loss that we'll have to bear in case of default. Now, the things that you see on the screen, you might say, hey, Rahul, this is not something new. This is something that has been existing for a while, right? Um, for example, fraud analytics, right now, or identifying suspicious transactions, wherein, if I'm in India right now and if I make a debit card or a credit card swipe at a physical store, and after 1 hour in the statements you see a physical swipe done in US, so obviously that's a fraud transaction, right? Because within 1 hour I cannot travel to US and make that transaction on a physical, right? So how do we kind of look at all this transaction, classify the intent, classify the category of those transactions, and determine whether it is suspicious or not? So all this activities or this analytics has been there in the past for a long time, but since 2020, what has changed, or where the customers are revisiting, is to reduce the time it kind of takes to understand the data, get the data in real time, process it using LLM models, and then fed it to the machine learning algorithm to kind of do the prediction and predictive analytics, be it credit loss framework or be it determining the suspicious transactions that are happening with LLM models. LLM, if you give them millions of transactions, it will just take few amount of time to kind of process those transactions and identify the category, whether this was like grocery, this was like shopping, this was like fuel, this was like entertainment. It can do categorization, it would understand the transactions, and with natural language it could do the categorization of the transaction for you and make the data cleaner, faster, for it to be consumed by the machine learning algorithm that is there. So LLMs, be it irrespective of the language, it can do, content summarization, it can do language translation, it will do the job for you. Previously, before this, before the introduction of LLM models, there used to be a lot of data engineering effort to kind of get that data to the source system, do the cleaning, do feature engineering, removal of null values, duplicate values, so on and so forth. And after the data is good, then it was fed into the model. Now with LLMs, with the introduction of LLMs, we kind of have this huge chunks of data already to be fed to an LLM model and reduce the time it kind of takes to do the prediction by introduction of LLM models and giving this ease which is there. So we kind of have various customers wherein all the solution that you see on the screen are not just analytics or machine learning based. They kind of have been paired on a broader AI umbrella and heavily used by LLM models to kind of do or understand the data that is there at hand to kind of deliver the value that is there. So risk analysis is one such category wherein if you look at the high level, how you can look a behavioral pattern of a certain consumer or a user and then determine whether that user or person could default on a loan that has been taken by that user, right? How do we flag and how do we identify suspicious transactions, right? How do we build a framework that could determine whether we gonna default on credit or not, right? And how do we also determine that the life of a loan, if I have taken a loan, how are my transactions after taking the loan, right? Do I clear all my credit card dues and balances at the end of the month like a transactor, or I'm a revolver that kind of, takes the pending balances kind of moves it to the next month, right? Now, if I kind of have taken loan, my income remains the same looking at the transactions, and my expenses have kind of began to go high and I miss out on one, two EMIs, then the probability of me on defaulting on the loan gets higher. So how do we do that, right? So you will have transaction data, that is your credit card statement, you will have bank statements, you will have salary slips or the bank statement showing the salary of the user that is coming in and the expenditure broadly categorized. So you do not have to go to each transaction to see what that transaction is. LLM model can do the categorization and the summarization of all the transactions for you. That this particular human is spending, let's say, 50% on groceries, 80% on entertainment, and the balance is that he already has a car loan, right? And then there is this personal loan that is taken by your organization. What is the probability of it to default on that particular loan? And we could predict that firsthand. So that is the few of the things that we have done in risk analytics. Moving forward, the same thing can be applied in customer analytics as well. How do we hold on to the customer and give them a very good experience with our products or with our organization or with our services that are there? For example, look at the second last example, which is a very good example on as and when you check out from your product or your app or your product offering that is there, how do we determine that whether what is the likelihood for that customer to kind of do the checkout process smoothly, or what is the likelihood that the customer would do everything and instead of checkout it will just close the app or close the browser and just do not do the complete transaction at all, right? So how do we attain an express checkout conversion? And just by looking at the friction points, we determine whether the express checkout or whether the conversion or whether the purchase will happen or not. And we did this for a global payments client. Now, a few of the friction points that I would like you to think of is one, let's say I'm working on an app and it asks me to log in or create an account before I actually make the payment. That is one of the friction point. I don't want to spend time again, give my details, everything to just to create an account for making the payment to happen. Another thing could be is that there is a form that I have to fill before I make before I do the checkout. That is another friction point. I do not want lengthy forms to be filled. Another thing a buyer could just not do the conversion is because let's say there's no available payment option for them. Now let's say I want to do it with my wallet, with my virtual wallet that is there, and that option is not there. It's only credit card or debit card, the option is there. Those are the friction points that would resist the customer or the buyer to kind of make that you know change from adding the products to the cart and finally making the payment and getting it converted, right? So how do we do this prediction analysis is we kind of determine the buyer friction points, and then we kind of do what is the likelihood for the buyer to make that particular purchase, right? So we kind of create a particular dashboard, kind of understand the granularity, and it could be technical problems also that it usually timeouts during the time of checkout. So we kind of get those data points, and this can be real time, and we kind of create a dashboard that how many of the users have likely to check out after they kind of have made the purchase, right? So similarly, LLM models for large amount of data, even though if it is real time, they can come together, do summarization, do intent recognition, do sentiment analysis, and determine what is the sentiment of the customer. Right? For example, take the last one that is there on the sentiment analysis of the customer. How long would you kind of so if a customer has survey comments, right, which is an unstructured data, and you cannot tell the customer, hey, please give your feedback in English only, right? Customer can give the feedback in any language that he or she wants to. So how do you kind of take that customer data feedback, map it to a product ID, product name, which is kind of residing in your structured database, have that unstructured data, and probably you do not want to read every review, but you want to just know the sentiment of that product, whether it was positive, whether it was negative, whether it was neutral. And then you kind of have this fancy Power BI dashboard, which tells you, hey, the product for this particular category, the sentiment was very positive. For this particular category, the product sentiment was very neutral or it was negative. And that will kind of help you plan and strategize on how do you want to expand on the product development, what should be the area of your focus. Again, kind of LLMs plays a major role to kind of understanding huge chunks of unstructured data, making it done for you. For example, intent recognition, for example, sentiment analysis, for an example, entity recognition. It will determine the name, place, animal, thing all by itself. And it is just the natural capability of LLM models to determine based on certain transaction that this transaction was done in Singapore, this transaction was done in Malaysia, and it will kind of categorize it all for you, which can be fed into machine learning to kind of give you the predictive analytics that is there. Another important area is churn analytics. How do we hold the customer so that it does not go away from us? How do we uh, set up a way that we do not lose out on the potential churners, right? So key element here is, let's say I have been interacting with the bank, and you would see within the last 6 months my interaction is very less. I have been not logging in much on the app or on the website that is there. I'm not making any transactions. I'm not purchasing any new products. But at the same time, you could see my customer support tickets are all aggressive and all or an angry sentiment wherein I'm not happy with the services, right? So studying all this data can help us determine what is the probability that a particular customer is likely to churn out in the near time, right? So you could look at this banking transactions. If you're a banking firm, you could look at this transactions, statements, interactions, support tickets, all this data, fed it into LLM models and clean the data, make it available for machine learning to do the prediction for you, right? So how do you kind of prevent the churn to happen is what can be seen in churn analytics. And this is, like I said, if you look at the title, it is all under the broad category of AI ML. Now, looking at the time, next category could be product recommendation analysis, right? How do you kind of create a personalized product page wherein as soon as I log in, I see something that is matching to my interest, matching to that is something that is matching to the era or the age that I'm into. Right. For example, what I could do is I could make or looking at my transaction, you could see that I'm purchasing a lot of baby products right now. Right. I'm purchasing diapers, I'm purchasing this and that. And if I log into a personalized page of yours, looking at my transactions, you should recommend me the products that I could use. Hey, you know what? There is this child plan which you could use that, X amount of money if you invest, it will kind of mature at this particular time when your child turns 18 or 21, so on and so forth, right? So how do we kind of look at a particular set of data and determine the next possible action or predict the next possible action that a customer can do based on the data that is available to us, right? So determining, even in case of loan propensity modeling, right? So let's say there are agents that kind of visit your house and kind of ask you question, hey, what is your age? What is your income? What is your area of interest? So on and so forth. So if a guy who has just passed out of college, let's say is making 30, 40, 50K US dollars a year and has no homes, has no existing bank loans, a written statement by the guy who's sitting in that office in front of potential customer just can be fed into the LLM model, and the LLM will do the entity extractions for you that age is this, income is this, there's no existing loans. Now that can be a potential customer, that the one that is starting on the journey who does not have plan to do further masters can be the one that could be a potential customer for you to kind of provide you with a home loan, for example, because who likes to buy, everyone likes to buy their first home with their salary as they come, right? So how do we make product recommendation based on the given set of information is something that again can be done with AI ML. So determining the next best product recommendation or determining products that are best suited for the customer based on the transaction, based on the knowledge that you have for that customers, be it financial statement, be it credit card statement, be it outstanding loan, how you can make product recommendation based on the information uh, that you have. Another thing can be in the space of call center and NLP, like the deep dive case study that we just saw at the start of it, right? Even before connecting to an agent, the chat that the customer does with the chatbot, how you could recognize the intent, how do you recognize the sentiment of that chat before it actually connects to the agent so that the agent is kind of prepared to kind of give the answers so that it kind of gives at least a better experience for the customer, right? The agent will know beforehand a customer is irate and it has to be handled in a different way or in a much polite way rather than just picking up a call and the customer burst out and vents out everything and just and that's not the place where the contact center agent should be, right? So how do we create or extract intelligence? How do we create an NLP based chatbots that could determine the intent, that could determine the sentiment of the customer even it before reaches out to the contact center agents, right? We kind of do by classifying the intents that is there, that is being typed by the customer in the chatbot, and how all this can lead to higher value delivered, right? Again, this none of these use cases are all high value, high complexity use cases. It is not a simple use case that you could take certain amount of data, index it, and just do a Q&A on that, right? This is about thinking on a broader spectrum of the data that you have, how you can think through and kind of build something that can generate value for you, that can generate revenue for you, that can generate monetization opportunities for you, and how you can productionize all this. At the end of this, after we finish this, I'll tell you how you could take that first step, or even if you are in the middle of the journey, how you can um, do that. And I think we are the right advocate for do this because we kind of have built those frameworks just out of customer experience that we have while building AI applications, right? Another use cases that you see in marketing analytics, right? So how do you kind of derive the maximum ROI to make the campaign decisions, right? Like what is the customer behavior that has been since last 2 3 months, where have all the spends have been, and how do I target a particular marketing campaign for that particular customer based on his age, on his demographics, or his geography, or on his area of um, interest, right? Moving on, so quick summary of all the things that we have done is right. So AI, the broader term AI, a subset of it are LLMs, have kind of made a huge difference. And you could take my word for it in all these categories that we have seen, right? Be it marketing analytics, be it customer life cycle, be it customer experience, for that matter. How do you cross sell, upsell, right? How do you take care of iteration? How do you take care of churn? How do you set up loyalty programs and predict product offerings that could be best suited for your customers? How do you forecast a loan default that's going to happen? How do you determine the ROI? How do you take care of the real time bidding? And how do you take care of the loyalty programs? All can be done. Like I said, these are all high value, high complexity use case. Based on the data you have, we create an architecture in such a way that we use LLM models, machine learning techniques, and Power BI to kind of give the reporting and the dashboard experience for you. Similarly, in business decisioning, how you could use it, how you could use it in fraud detection, like I just explained, right, about swiping credit cards or making a transaction which is beyond the range that you usually transact. For the last 6 months, let's say I have been transacting in the range of 2,000 to 3,000 Singapore dollars, and suddenly there is an 100K of Singapore dollar transaction, that is definitely marked as a suspicious transaction. And then it can be later evaluated whether it was actually a fraud transaction or it was a transaction that was genuinely done by the customer, right? How you can look at the regulatory documents, which from my experience, I'm sure there are tons of it. There are various keywords, there are various standards that are being used in those regulatory documents. How you could use to summarize those documents, how you could use to compare those documents, how you can take one document to update another document is all possible with LLMs and combining them with other auto and other technologies that are present, right? So if you want to update a document, update is not done by LLM. You could use, it can be done by using Power Automate, right? After the thing has been done by LLM, updating it can be done by Power Automate or using any robotic framework that you have, which will kind of do the task of what it has been assigned to do. Now, quickly, the main question is, okay, I understand all this. I kind of have new ideas of how I can leverage some of the production recommendation, churn analytics, how I can do marketing with this. But the main question is, where do I start with this? Now, if you kind of just browse on the internet, there are so many models, there are so many platforms, there are so many frameworks to do. Where do I start this, right? So it kind of boils down into two main categories. One is kind of the theoretical category about determining the use case, and the second is creating a technical architecture that will support that particular use case, right? So how do we identify use cases? And this is something that we have been doing for a good amount of time, wherein we actually visit customer office, we kind of conduct this interviews with the stakeholders, and we kind of identify the potential areas after hearing their use cases, whether this can be solved with LLMs or machine learning or AI, the broader category. And if yes, what is the impact that it's going to make? What is the value that it's going to deliver? Right. So here, this slide talks about theoretically, we take interviews, we understand your data set, we understand what are you trying to solve. We try to understand what is the value it's going to generate. What is your current state? What are your gaps? And what is the target state that you want to do? Right. And then you see, we kind of evaluate the use cases. We kind of create a use case scoring report, which I'll show you very shortly. And then we create a value complexity framework, which is something like this. Let me zoom it to what max you could see. Is, let's say you have this particular data source, this is the type of data, this is the historical data that you have, and there is this amber, green, red kind of thing, which kind of tells us that how mature the data is, whether it would need some kind of cleaning before it is fed for AI machine learning work, right? What model will be suited for what type of data that is available, that is there. So we kind of summarize all this theory, and we then kind of determine the next step for this is, which is the technical solutioning, right? Once the theory is collected, once we identify potential use cases, once we see how this can be solved, we kind of map that to the technical landscape, right? For example, for this particular type of data that we are trying to solve, what is the best LLM model that can be used? What is the cost of that particular LLM model that can be used in this? Is it something that will oversee the value that is going to generate in the next 6 months? If yes, then we make decisions according to that. Then we kind of collate the data, understand whether cleaning is required, whether feature engineering is required, whether there's lots of duplicates, dummy data, invaluable data. We kind of see and make it domain agnostic, domain specific, so that the model kind of gives better responses and prevent the hallucination, and kind of, just for you to not reach to a conclusion that, hey, LLM is not working for me, it is hallucinating, so on and so forth. But hallucination of model not working, I think it's very less component. But what is major work is actually working on the data that is fed to an LLM model. There's a very famous saying which goes that what goes in comes out, right? If you send garbage into an LLM model, you'll get garbage out. But if you send a good data in, you will get a good data out of LLM model. So kind of coming back, after we kind of do the evaluation and comparison of the LLM models, how many LLM models we want to use, whether we do it autonomous way, whether we do it RAG way, whether we kind of, do choose GPT 3.5 for content summarization, and for context generation, we use 4, or for comparison, we use GPT 4. How do we kind of bring that best of breed architecture when it comes to model? And then we kind of create an end-to-end journey or end-to-end architecture showcasing how you can map this use case to a particular technological way. And limitations, there could be some limitations with data sources, right? For example, they cannot allow you to move the data out of it. Your data might be residing at a place that, because of the regulatory compliance, you cannot take it out of that. So even still, you could use OpenAI to mask that data, use Fabric to do the processing on the fly, and then keep your data back to the data residency where it belongs to, right? So once we kind of have identified the potential use cases, we kind of map the technology landscape to that particular use cases, and we kind of try to bring it in a unified approach. Not that each use case will have a modular architecture. That defeats the whole purpose, because down the road it will be the cost that will be more than the value that it has to deliver. So how do I create a modular architecture that can help solve the problem for me in a unified manner? And these are few of the consideration and options while we build the architecture. Like I said, right, data privacy is one thing. how can I reuse my models as I scale, as I add new data sources, or if there is an API version upgrade of an existing model, how do I create an architecture in such a way that I do not have to create a downtime for it? How do I keep my model grounded to a particular domain, or what could be the infrastructure or implementation challenges, right? For example, scaling can be one challenges. You do not want the users to see timeout or token limitations, error, and how do I build an API so that load balancing is also kind of taken care. And here is the dimensions that we could use for use case and model evaluation, right? The adoption first itself, the value can be in dollars, value can be in time to value or ease of measurement, and also in terms of risk reduction that happens with the introduction of LLM models, right? And then there's technical assessment, like it just said before, what model to choose, one models, multiple models, single models, what will be the infrastructure for that particular model, whether you want to use Azure AI Search as a vector DB, whether you want to add metadata to it, whether you want to create a business glossary to kind of understand your data that is there, how would you want to take the modeling approach to it, and eventually what is the cost of end to end. The value has to be more than the cost that you are paying for the organization. So after we kind of get into all this data set, here is the simple thing that we convert, right? We map everything based on this value complexity, right? So anything that is doable or supplementary or that is good to have can be a low value, low complexity, right? A Q&A on your data. If you have tons of PDF, if you want to just do a Q&A, that is a low value, low complexity that can be built very quickly on Azure Tech Stack, and it can deliver a quicker value, right? If something that is low value but high complexity, maybe we rethink, maybe we reschedule it to do it after a certain amount of time, or is it strategic enough to kind of derive value of it? And the area that most of the customer enterprise customers wants to be it in high value, high complexity, wherein there's lots of data to be analyzed, lots of data sources, real time, batch streaming. How do we get the data, do certain of engineering so that the right amount of data gets fed into LLM models? And at the same time, the LLM model should be efficient enough to kind of cater to X amount of users in X amount of time. And the quick wins are definitely the one that you want to get back to your business to kind of show, which could be high value, low complexity ones, which is something that you could show within the next 60 weeks, within the next 6 to 8 weeks or 10 weeks. You could show immediate value to the business and kind of give them and kind of trailer that if we scale this is the art of possible that can happen. So when we kind of engage with the customer, we kind of look at the use cases which are mostly low complexity, high value, which are usually the quick wins. We kind of deliver them in 6 to 8 weeks, and once those are delivered, the business kind of understand, they kind of adopt to that, and then there's a possibility of scaling up to our high complexity and high value use cases. Right now, the last slide for this is about where do I take the first step technically, right? First is obviously you create an awareness about the use cases, whether it's actually worth taking that leap of faith um, into OpenAI. If something is being done in 20 minutes right now, and with OpenAI, you are able to do it in 15 minutes, that is not something that you should worth spend time and investigating more about that. But what is something that used to take 2 days, 48 hours, and something that can be done in 1 hour right now, right? And after that awareness is done, where do I start? Start small. Think big and start small. Start with a basic proof of concept, right? Take from the entire chunk of data, start with small amount of data, start with one data source, or start with three data source to just to see the value out of a structured data, unstructured data, and have that proof of concept delivered to your business, to your end users, and test it. After you kind of see the value multiplying over time for that particular use case, implement and take it on a Gen AI roadmap, trying of thinking of productionizing it, trying and think of scaling it and trying to make it at an industry level, right? So right model strategy from POC to productionization is something that we will kind of learn across the way, but there's no golden rule is what I've learned so far. Right now, if you come with, I have data sources SAP, I have data source as Excel files. Now, if you have this data source, this is the model and this is the value you will see, though there's nothing like that. Like I said, it's a journey. It's an experimentation that you will have to do. And that is where the proof of concept kind of takes the play, wherein we kind of understand by doing a proof of concept that, hey, is it actually generating value? If not, how do I scale about it, right? And for all the customers we have worked, we kind of have worked on this quick wins, which are low complexity, high value use cases, and there are hardly any customers that have gone back. Right? Everyone sees the value using LLM models, getting into that greater AI transformation, and LLMs for sure have kind of got that edge to reduce the time it kind of usually would take to clean data, productionize data, categorize data, determine sentiment, intent, so on and so forth. Um, right. So that's all I had. I'll, we still have 15-20 minutes to do the Q&A. But like I said, Q&A is okay. You could just send me an email after this call. You could reach out to the persons that you see on the screen. Myself is Rahul. I'm the last one. But Anupam is the head of the APAC. Arun kind of leads for the Singapore region. So please feel free to shoot us an email out if you want to understand where your current status, where do you want to reach, how do you kind of evaluate certain models, what techniques can be used to kind of see about reaching your end goal, or even if you're just starting on your AI journey and if you just want to evaluate, please feel free to reach out. For this particular section or for this particular session that we have done for the past some time, if you have any questions on this case studies, right, that we just saw, if you want that, hey, I want a deeper dive, I want a deep dive on a particular case study on marketing analytics, we could get on a 30 minutes call, we could get on a 45 minutes call, we could do a deep dive, something in this manner, wherein we could show you what was the actual problem, what was the architecture that was built for that, how did we solve about going that, and what was the business value that was derived from it. So all this deck will be there with you. If you want to connect back with us, please feel free to reach out to the email addresses that you see. For any Q&A, please feel free to reach out to me for any of the business inquiries that you want to do. If you want to explore the art of possible, how do I go about it? What can be done in my use case? I don't have an idea. Can you help us with that? We kind of have the SMEs for this particular domain to kind of tell you even what can be possible with it and how do you start with the AI journey and scale later. So thank you everyone for patiently listening to me. I can start taking questions now. But it was a pleasure to kind of talk to you, and I hope that it kind of have planted the seed for you in your minds about what is the art of possible and how you can eventually grow about it. And here we, Tiger Analytics, Microsoft is always there at your disposal. Shall you have any questions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank
So,
you. So
yeah.
I think currently there is no questions on the
Okay.
chat, but let
Okay.
us wait for probably a few minutes to see if there's anyone have any other questions. If not, we can end early. But if any of you have like too shy to ask any questions, you can always reach out to Rahul or the team, or you can reach out to SFA, and we'll get you connected with Tiger Analytics and Microsoft as well. So maybe we'll wait until 4:20-ish if to see if there's any questions.
Or you can unmute yourself, no, to ask questions. No worries
Yeah.
on that. Yeah. Don't be shy.
Anything that you want to ask on the agentic framework that has been the talk of the town? How do I evaluate certain models? Um, how can I go about solving a particular problem? While I understand this is a larger group, you might not want to discuss the intricate details, but in a generalized way, please feel free to ask if you have any questions on any particular use cases or a broader category that you want to ask question for. We have good 10 minutes to kind of discuss if you have anything. Or if you want to do this as an individual workshop, we can collaborate together and kind of do it as an individual workshop for your organization. Uh, right? There will be certain brochures that will be sent to you after this call. But We are doing one in the second last week of this month in Singapore, wherein we'll be visiting two of the customers, and we'll be doing an envisioning workshop with them right in their office. So if you think that there are certain opportunities in those sense, please feel free to reach out to us, and we can help you take that leap of faith and determine the roadmap and journey that you could take in the world of AI.
Okay, I think there's no questions or people are just shy in general. But thank you for your time. But so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, or you have Rahul's email just now. He already shared anything at all. Post this call, we will also send through some materials and also their contact, so you can also reach out. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having you in our future webinars and events at SFA as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye.
Nice week. Bye bye.